let's dive in. So for Excel range and range reference, this is just to tell you that what you just learned is very important when it comes to referencing. So I just brought the slide up so that you get to see that, yes, this is actually what is happening. Okay, so let's go deeper. Here, relative and absolute referencing. But here we want to look at relative referencing. You see, actually, formula reference, your formulas reference cells using your column and row identities. You see that? So what Excel does is when you give it a row, when you give it a column identity, it uses that to work. Now, the default setting of Excel, you know, in Pidgin English, we'll say the follow come of the way Excel behaves is relative referencing. You don't need to do anything for Excel to do relative referencing. That is how it comes, and that is how it carries out its work. You get it? So, when you enter formulas, and all the formulas that have been entering, they all have relative referencing. So what we need to kill our heads on is what is absolute referencing. But before I do that, I just want to show you how relative referencing works. You see, if you look here, you see that the formula here is A2 plus B2. A2 times B2. So we use the asterisks for times. And you only need to enter this formula, just like we did it here. And then we copy it down. When I copy it down, you can notice what is happening. I entered A2 times B2. But when I copy it down here, you see, when I copy it down here, what you see is different. What you see is A3 times B3. And when I copy further, you see it gives me A4 and B4. Why is it doing this? We're asking the why now. Why is it doing this? It is doing this because of relative referencing. This is relative referencing at work. And what do we mean by relative referencing? What relative referencing is simply trying to tell us is that, oh, you told me to multiply cell A2 and cell B2. But when you copied down, I saw here that this cell is A3 and this other cell is B3. So I thought that just what you wanted to do here is the same thing you want to do here, that you want to multiply these two numbers. So that is why I said A3 times B3. And since you copied it down here, I understand that that's what you want to do all through. So that's why I just went for the A4 times B4, A5 times B5. And that's the language Excel understands. You see that? And so this is relative referencing. That I want to reference it relative to what you previously did. What you previously did, you use column A and column B. So since that is what you did, relative to that, I'm going to do the same thing for other cells. And that is what is happening right here. So that's what you can see happening here. And then I just try to show you what the formulas here are showing. They use the reference to carry that out. Okay? So fine. Now, if we will demonstrate all of this in Excel in just a while, but I want you to go and see how the absolute referencing works. Okay? So here, this is what absolute referencing would do. Now, there's a difference between the problem we saw here and the problem we saw here. In that we have here, we had values. I want you to see this clearly. We actually had values. We had values here that were multiplying values here. See that? To give us what is here. So 1 times 1 will give us this. 1 times 2 gives us returns 2, and just like that, that is what we have here. But it is different in here. It is different here. Here, we just have the value 1 here. And what is happening here, this formula that you're seeing here, is it is telling you that, okay, I want to multiply what is here, A3, by the value B3. But we find that there's nothing here. It approximates to 0, and that's why your answers are coming up as zeros. But what we want to do, we want to use this one to multiply all of these ones. You get it? We want to use it to multiply all of that one. And that is what we're trying to do here. That's what we accomplish here. So you can see that I got the answer here. 1 multiplied by any of these, I get the answers here. You get it? So this, what is happening here, is actually relative referencing. You get it? This one here is relative referencing. And then you can see that relative referencing has just given us errors. We want to multiply 1 with all of this and return the answer. See, it's giving us errors. And a lot of people, when they get to this point, they say, oh, sorry, I don't really know what to do. You know what, let me go back to how I used to do it, get a calculator, multiply it, time, and type in the values inside that way. Even when we go for our test, some of us may have just done that just to escape much work that we have to do. But no, you don't need to do that. Now, look at what this one is doing. You can see that here, this one it multiplies these 2. So it is something like this. It goes like this. But when it comes here, you can see that the multiplication is this. You can see that the multiplication is this. The multiplication here, same like that. It's going. Once you tell Excel what to do, it's going to do exactly what you want it to do. Okay? So that's exactly what it's doing. And here you can see that it is doing the same thing as what we just saw in here. Okay? I just want to check the chat. It says, can one reference a sheet to another workbook? Of course, yes. I just told you that, yes, it can be done. Oh, thanks very much. Then another says, I cannot see the Excel sheet you are working on. I'm actually on a PowerPoint. We'll go to the Excel sheet to explain that. Okay. So if that suffices, that's fine. So I just want you to see the behavior of absolute referencing, because here, what we are actually doing is absolute referencing. Everything here is absolute referencing. Here, it's actually relative referencing that is taking place. And that's why we have these errors occurring here. But what I want you to do to just see what's happening, I want you to see what is happening here. So it is saying, give me A2 times B2. But see, there's a difference. See, there's a $ between A and B. There's a $ between A and 2, rather. A and 2, rather. There's a $ there. So that $ must be the difference. If there's a change, if anything changes this look from this look, then that changes the problem. We need to hold it. So that's the $ there. So again, I want you to look at this one and then look at what happens here. There's a $ also, A2, but it's B3 when I copy it down. It's B4 later, B5, B6, but this one remains constant. It simply means that this $ helps us to keep a reference absolute. It helps us to keep a reference fixed or locked. You know, sometimes absolute and relative doesn't really, for most of us who are not native English learners, we don't get the picture. Nothing stops you from using the word locked or fixed. Now notice that I have 2, 2, 2, 2, 2 continuously, rather than 3, 4, 5 for this other one. Yes, that is how it behaves. You see, here, this is absolute referencing. But what is absolutely referenced here is the row, not the column. Now, let me help you to understand that, because you need to get this really important. Now, see, this row, this column here is 1. No matter how I copy from cell to cell here, I'm going to be using this column to multiply. So A would not change. Even if I'm moving across rows, A will not change because it's the same column. What can only change is rows, because I'm moving from one row to the next row, and just like that. And so what I need to fix is the role identity. This role identity is here. I want to make it fixed. I want to lock it. And so that is why we see what happens here. That's why we see what happens here. So every time, for me, every time I think about locking cells, I think about handcuffs. So the handcuff is almost like the dollar sign. I don't know if they thought about that when they were using the dollar sign, you know, to lock references, you know. But it's ideal. It's ideal because it simply tells us that this guy has been locked. And this handcuff is behind. That's one thing I want you to have in your mind. If you are locking a reference, either a column reference or a row reference, the dollar sign is behind. I can't say this too much. It's behind. Because a lot of people are in situations where you have to lock the row and the column. They have ended up putting a dollar sign after the entire reference, and they get errors and they run away. Your dollar sign is behind the reference that you want to lock. So see the examples here. If you see this first example here, you will see that you'll see that in this first example here, we have relative references. Why? No dollar sign here, nothing. But when we come here, we see that there's a dollar sign that locks the row reference. Remember, rows are numbers. Rows are numbers. Rows can never be alphabets. The columns can be numbers, but we don't want to get at that. Let's just keep to this for now, that the columns are alphabets. So because I have a dollar sign behind the row, I'm keeping the row fixed. I'm keeping the row locked. But here is the alternative. Here you can see that I have the column reference locked. And then we have situations where we would keep the, we have situations where we would keep the, we have situations where we'll keep all of these ones, both the row and the column locked. If you don't have a dollar sign in it, automatically you have freedom. So you want to take this into heart and let us do some practice, okay? So this is about what we did. And then you have these formulas that are here, and then I can show you what actually is happening. So we have this. I come here and enter equal to A2, and it looks at that times B2. Hit your enter. So that's correct. In Excel, Excel wants you to work fast. If you've entered the formula in one place, you should be able to use it continuously. Okay, so you see, I'm getting the wrong answer here. So when you have this type of thing, what I tell you to do is just come in here, click. Come to this, we call it a formula bar. You can see it, formula bar. Just come to the formula bar, click here, and that's it. It tells you what's happening, and you already see the error. I cannot be multiplying a number with 0 and expect to get a number. It's going to be 0. So an Excel wants me to work by entering a formula once and then copying it anywhere. So what I go to do is come in here and put a $sign here. I just type in a $sign there, and then I just copy down, and that is what I have. I get the answer. So when you look at this and then you hit your F2, you can also hit your F2 to see what's happening. You can see the cell references it's taking. So the $sign helps us to lock it in there. Okay. Let's quickly do another task, and we'll just take a 10 minutes break. So we are going to build a multiplication table here. So this is what I do, and we're going to, sorry, what's happening here? So I want you to, this number plus 1. So that gives me 2, and I can copy it right here. Let's do multiplications up to 10. And then let's move this one. Okay, so I want to come here and put same here equal to this plus 1, and then here we go. Let's do it up to 10. Good. So the task we want to do is that it's a kind of matrix. We want to make sure that we return the value here if we sum this and this. The value here will be the sum, sorry, the multiplication of this and this. Multiplication of this and this. And so if we enter the formula here, we should be able to drag it. We just need to enter it into one cell. And so that will help us to look at what relative and absolute is. And that's a simple task. We just said equal to this, multiply asterisk by this. You could use the arrow buttons to move through cells to go and get the cell reference that you want to use in the formula. Okay, so that's it. And that's correct, isn't it? So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to copy it down. You know, after I've selected the cells, what I just do is press Control D, Control down, copy down, and then it gives me that. So you may want to note that if you don't know that shortcut. After you've selected all the cells you want to copy to, and the cell that got something you want to copy, you can just Control D, and then it copies it down. So I've done that, and you can see I have errors. 1 multiplied by 10 cannot be 36, 362, whatsoever. So that's totally wrong. So something is happening. Now, at this point, I want to teach you how to find out what the error is. Because if you know what the error is, it makes it easy for you to solve this. So let's look at where the error is. The first one, I'm going to hit my F2, or you can just, if you don't want to hit F2, just come click in here and see what's happening. If you click in here, you see that, oh, it's fine. So I will go to the next. I said 2 is correct, isn't it? But let me just check. Oh, you can see that 2 is not taking 1 here. I want it to take this 1. Although it took 1 here, I made it correct. No, I want it to always reference this cell. I want you to reference this cell. By the time you go to 1 that is not correct, you see it clearly. You see, something is moving. Something is moving, and it's causing a problem. And what is moving is in the blue cell, the blue reference. So that helps you to know where you can solve this problem. It's going to be in the blue. It can never be in this red. You get it? So it's going to be in the blue. This guy is moving. I don't want him to move. I want him to stay in one place. I'm telling the blue guy that if you move, I'm going to shoot you. And the only way I can do that is to handcuff him, lock him somewhere. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to click here. The blue is what I'm looking at. I asked myself, what is moving? It was moving through rows. So that's the problem. We found the issue. Lock this row guy, and then that should give us what we want. So F2, okay. So we're going to copy it down. And you can see we've been able to cage the criminal. So we have our answers correctly, simply by understanding relative and absolute referencing. So I'm going to go and be happy and say, hey, we've got the answer. So what I do is, even if this is not like this, I'm going to say, copy this down. And then for copying to your right-hand side is control arrow. So I'm going to copy like this. Oh, we got a problem again. What's the problem this time? Let's go and investigate. Let's launch our police force to go and investigate this problem. So I know everything here was fine. So there must be something happening such that if I copy this way, I get a problem. One thing I know is that when I was here, I knew that moving across the rows was causing a problem. Now I didn't move across rows, I just copied across columns. So could movements across columns be the problem? Let's go and investigate still. So, so you can come to this one, you can come to this and say, hey, 3 times 1 should not give me 6. So what's happening? See, the red guy is moving. If I come here, the red guy has moved down here. If I come here, the red guy has moved down here. So you can see where the problem is coming from. So we go back to this place where we entered our first function and formula, and then go and lock the red guy. How do we know what to lock? Should we lock the row? Should we lock a column? Remember that this whole thing, problem, all of this was right, but this here, coming this way, we had a problem. We were copying across columns. That is exactly what we were doing. We were copying across columns. We're copying across columns. Which is the problem. We were not copying across rows this time. So if you know that, then the next thing you do is come in here. The red guy is the problem. The column there is E, and just put a $sign behind the E. And there we are. We're going to copy down. We are fine. Copy to the right. We are fine.